All right, we're going to start recording in three, two.
We're going to start off today's episode with a quote from the man himself, Robert Glasper. Anybody who loves jazz has a little bit of snob in them. Welcome everyone to the Unconnoisseur. My name's Matt.
And I'm Drew.
We are
That's an
the
awesome quote.
Unconnoisseurs. Yeah, isn't that a good quote? Because we talk about all the time that jazz snobs, and we're not jazz snobs at all. And I think we're kind of getting there a little bit, but not quite all the way.
Not quite all the way.
So yeah, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining us today. Just wanted to remind everyone why we're doing this and why we got started. You know, we were in a musical rut, and jazz music kind of filled that rut for us. And we've been doing the countdown from the top 100 albums that shook the world from Jazzwise magazine. And today we're going to do episode number 89. And man, we are so excited to talk about Robert Glasper today. But first, Drew, what was your week in music like? How was your week?
You know, that's been interesting going back and putting Robert in my ears, as well as the artists that we're currently covering. It's been a whole lot of fun. Outside of the music, it's been say, wild week. It was Easter weekend. As we record this, we just wrapped that up. So a lot of stuff happening Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and even today, kind of more of a rest day, and did some yard work this morning. Had the drain pump on the washing machine go out, so I got to change that, and I listened to some great music. Got it all back together, and the pump was still not working. So a little frustrated, and getting later into the night, and I still had 3 or 4 hours worth of work to do, and it was already 9 o'clock, and the pump didn't work. I was a little mad, personally frustrated, and I went back and reviewed what it might be, and I'm going to tear the washer apart to do it again. Well, we have 3 large dogs, and we've got large load washer and dryer. We do a lot of the dog blankets and the bed, and although we clean the filter religiously, it was a clogged disposal line, and all I had to do was blow it out, and it worked perfectly fine. So the second time replacing that drain pump was really easy after you've done it once that same night. So 10 o'clock rolls around, the laundry machine's working, and it's time to come back and sit in front of the computer and edit images. So it was definitely a tough one, but been pretty chill for the most part during this week. Everything that I've experienced and enjoyed has been wonderful. What about you?
Well, I had a good week. Like you said, it was Easter weekend, and so, um, you know, Mom's been out of town visiting Aunt Debbie in England, and so I got the chance to spend a lot of time with Dad. Believe it or not,
Good.
Dad came over Wednesday night for dinner, and ended up being a whole family whole family gathering over here for dinner Wednesday night. Friday afternoon for the Good Friday service, and then we went to see Brad Wilson's band play at the American Legion in Wayndale. So I got to spend a couple more hours with Dad. No, we weren't drinking.
The American Legion, you weren't drinking? Come
Mad
on.
Matt, right?
That's what you do there.
And then Sunday, of course, Easter service. We got to do Easter service together, and then we went out together as a big family and had lunch together. So fitting music around all of that, it was not hard to fill my week with music. Let's put it this way. But I went back to Carrie Underwood's album this week. She sang a gospel album, being Good Friday and just kind of getting back in the mood. She's got a tremendous voice, and I just love that album. It's called My Savior from 2021, and wow, it's not
Pretty
really,
good.
it's really good. Her version of well, they make me cry. They do. Great is thy faithfulness. How great thou art. The old rugged cross. I'm getting teared up just thinking about it, but it's that time of the year for us where we rejoice and are thankful that we have a risen Savior. So that one hit me hard this week. I bought that album on iTunes. I own that album, and it's one that I do not regret buying. But anyways, fitting in Robert Glasper, that was easy too, because man,
Oh, it was smooth.
it was.
And
It was
I
smooth.
forgot to mention this in my recap of the week. Wednesday and Thursday night, right here in Austin, at Austin City Limits, was John Baptiste and the World Music Radio Tour. We got floor seats, so I was 6 feet away from him on stage. So yeah, I forgot about that. My music in week, my week in music, yeah, that included that tour that night. And that's a pretty cool venue to be in. They've got a mezzanine and a balcony, but the floor is standing room. So we were pretty close. And John did this deal at the end of the show where he comes walking through the stage. We had seen it on ACL Live 3 years ago. What we didn't expect is that he and the band made it to the balcony and did a tour up on the balcony, and then came down the steps and performed a simple piece there on the balcony itself. And he had the entire place singing along with him. And then just like that, he said goodnight and exited the balcony. So, yeah, that was a pretty fun night in music for sure.
Absolutely.
But it left me thinking about the blend of musics. New World World Radio Music is his blend of things. At some point in time, he was acting and playing like a DJ. Had some really cool hip hop hard beats coming out, things that I was getting motivated because of Skrillex or somebody else that might have dropped beats like that. But then I kept thinking in the back of my mind the blend of where we're going today. You had mentioned the name, but I want to drop it right now. This week, we were on number 89, Robert Glasper, and the album was Double Booked. That album was from 2009. And man, what could you have expected any differently from Double Booked?
Well, hey, let me interject this too, because how far is Sugarland, Texas, from you?
Not far, just down in Houston.
Oh, down near Houston. Okay, because well, he's in Austin. Glasper's going to be in Austin.
What you talking about, Willis?
For the Austin Blues Festival. Yeah.
Oh, for
the
real?
Austin Blues, but check this out. He's there Saturday, April 27th at the Austin Blues Festival. And then Saturday night, he's in New Orleans doing a show in New Orleans. And then he flies right back to Austin for another show in Austin on Sunday.
Okay.
So April 27th and 28th, Glasper's going to be in Austin. And then he's coming to Detroit, June the 26th. He'll be in Detroit. Just something to think about. I'm just saying.
Sugarland. What'd you bring up with Sugarland?
Well, he's going to be in Sugarland too. He's going to be in
Okay.
Austin, and I figured if you're busy one of those 2 days, he's going to be in Sugarland too. But that's too far away. I mean, I wouldn't.
I didn't see him on the original lineup when I saw this. Buddy Guy, Jimmy Vaughn, the Altons, and Three Censors. Sorry, the blue screen that I'm looking at on the page. But then he's here on Sunday, the 28th. Okay. It's Brittany Howard, Robert Glasper, Big Frida. That's going to be
Okay.
I may I may just get a chance to see him on Sunday, April 28th.
I'm just saying, how cool would that be? You know, we're
Yeah,
talking about him this week, and then next month you get to see him. Oh,
April
this month.
28th. This
This month.
yeah, it is this month.
Yeah. So, yeah, Glasper double booked is the album. You'll throw the album cover up there, I'm sure, as we
Yeah.
talk about him a little bit. A couple of things that stand out in my mind, and I'm just going to highlight some of the stuff in the paragraph. He graduated from the New School of Music in Manhattan. And he's from Texas.
Houston, baby.
Houston, baby. Oh, that's why he's going to be.
That's why he's going to be in Houston.
Yeah, that's why he's going to be there. He's playing home. This album showcases two sides of the artist coming together. So the reason the album is called Double Booked is because the first 6 songs are his traditional jazz, and then the second 6 songs are his experimental group. And for me, if you don't mind, I'm just going to jabber a little bit. But for me, you could totally tell the two different styles of music. And, you know, the first 6 songs are that traditional trio, you know, piano, bass, and drums. Occasionally he's got a sax thrown in there. And then the second 6 songs are the experimental kind of stuff. I almost wish, and I'm just getting very, very picky here because we'll tell you our score on Robert coming up, but I almost wish there was a song transition where he would blend the two together, you know, start off with maybe a traditional and then go kind of wicked crazy with the experimental stuff and then move to the next 6 songs of experimental. You know what I mean? Because it was almost like a hard cut. It was almost like okay, these 6 and then boom, hard cut, boom. Now we're doing experimental stuff. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah. But yeah, you could totally tell. And, you know, as I had the music in and I was listening to it, and I know that you do this way more than I do, but sometimes you'll start on song number 4 or song number 7 and then listen to the album and then start it over at 1. I always start at the beginning.
Well, I did that for so long, Matt, that starting over at 1, you get 3/4 of the way through the album, 5th or 6th time you start at the beginning and you realize I never heard the last 3, 4, 5 songs. So
Right.
I would then start in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I typically decide early on if I am going to listen to the album, I intentionally just sit down and listen. I might turn the album off if it's dinner time, and then I'll go up front and eat. But for the most part, don't mess with me, baby. And
Honk louder. I'm listening to jazz.
right, honk louder. Jazz is in my ears.
Sure. I enjoy the experimental stuff. And we'll talk about a couple of his other albums here in a minute, and I will let you know that it's the name of the album. We are not being dirty on air, so it's the name of the album. Anyways, you know, a little bit more information about Robert. He was nominated for 11 Grammys, and he's won 5 times. Again, we've talked about that. Unfortunately, Double Booked isn't one of the albums that he was nominated for, but you know, being nominated 11 times, he won in 2013 for Black Radio. He won traditional R&B performance for Jesus Children of America. He was nominated for F Yo Feelings. He was nominated, but one of his songs won Best R&B Song off that album in 2021.
Yep.
So I mean, you know, we're not listening to some chump here.
No, I'm laughing because it far from it. He really is a musical genius in my mind. In listening to the stuff this week again, but I think we went for almost a month, even after this week in this album. For a month, we went on to check this one out. Did you listen to that? How about this one? And I was driving out to Bastrop for something that day when you called and said, "Hey man, F Your Feelings." And I thought, wow, that was rude. And you assumed, and I should have known that was one of the big albums. It was a month after this album. Yeah. It kind of shook us up.
Yeah, we were still talking about Robert for quite a while, and we still reference that FEO Feelings album in conversation daily.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It is that blend of music.
yeah,
When you're bringing in the hip hop into the jazz world, what could you expect as an outcome? 70s, they blended jazz in with the rock fusion. Herbie Hancock and Headhunters Thrust, Bitches Brew and Miles Davis, all these other big names were blending that current trend. And so for Robert to do that just kind of makes sense. Bring that hip hop into it. And the way he did it on FEO Feelings and Black Radio 1, 2, and 3 was just, it was so much fun.
yeah, for sure. And I've got another quote from Mr. Glasper right here, and it kind of is right along that same lines. And here's the quote: "I started out playing traditional jazz, and I still do. I love standards. I love the music, but it must move on, and it must live and breathe and continue to grow and continue to change and continue to mesh with other music. All that kind of stuff. Jazz can be on the playground too, you know." So right along that same lines of what you're talking about, I mean, it's a quote right from Glasper. He doesn't want the music to get stagnant. He doesn't want it to be like it always was. He wants it to move on and be different. And that's one thing great about jazz music is if you got to explain to somebody, they're not going to get it.
Well, and it's even more interesting because I pulled up this quote from Miles Davis. When you do anything long enough, you wear it out or you lose interest. And that was about music. I'm gonna do something different. So going back as far as Miles in the 60s, when he says something like that into this, I guess 70s, it is a progression.
Yeah.
Or it's a living art form. It will continue to grow and change and be evolved. What other albums did you get a chance to really listen to of Robert?
Well, of course, the FEO Feelings that we did that. I did that a couple of times, but the one that I had on again this morning that I really just kind of forgot how good it was Canvas from 2005.
Yeah, boy.
And that's a traditional, that's a traditional jazz album. And again, I read the snob quote from him, and I'm not a snob, but if I got my choice to listen to traditional or an experimental thing, I'm probably going to go the traditional side more often than not. Now, don't get me wrong, there's time and place for this, for the double. Oh yeah, definitely a time and place for him. Definitely a time and a place for Black Radio 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
But yeah, Canvas was the one that just kind of hit me extremely hard. Even going a year ago when we did this initially. What about you? What else did you listen to?
Well, Black Radio 1, 2, and 3. I actually put a little rating next to several of these albums that I listened to along the way. Obviously, the 2019 album, FEO Feelings. This one was double booked, but Mood, I've got a rating of 8 next to. And in Canvas, I wrote down 9.5. Heck yeah. And then I put next to this, it was a blend of that classical jazz touch, Pat sound guitar. I think that Pat Metheny feel in it. And then the note that I have next to it was so much goodness. Yeah. A fine work of art for sure is what I thought about with Canvas. Those things really hit me. All of his albums did. But that week as well, I did stray away from the music. I don't know exactly his part in it, but Miles Ahead, the movie that is about Miles Davis, kind of not about Miles Davis, but he was instrumental on the soundtrack for that movie.
Well, that's one of the ones that I failed to mention. He won the Grammy for the
Grammy.
best compilation. Yeah.
Best compilation soundtrack for visual media at the 59th annual. So that would have been a 2016 Grammy win for Miles Ahead. That was not a documentary. It was a movie. I don't even know if it was based on the real life of Miles Davis, so I don't want to say loosely based, but it was definitely a fun movie to watch.
It was a fun movie.
And I kind of partly think that could have been a Miles Davis movie. I think it was well done.
Lots of characteristics of Miles coming through the movie, you know.
Oh, yes. So I did dig into a lot of his other stuff. The good finds for the week, though, were Dinner Party. And Dinner Party had in it, where'd my information go? Well, I'll start with this. It was Kamasi and Robert Glasper. So big win there.
You can't go wrong there.
Robert and Kamasi. There was a third person in that group who's actually a music producer, and I can't find it right now.
Terrence Martin.
Terrence Martin. Absolutely, Terrence Martin.
Yep.
And then they had a very remix album of that, which was called Dessert. Dinner Party Dessert. And that was a 2020 alternative remix. And that had people like Snoop Dogg in it. So we definitely took it away from the jazz scene. Come on, drop Kamasi in an album with anybody. Bam. You put Snoop Dogg and Kamasi in the same room. I could imagine the mentality, what's going through their mind. So it would have been huge. Terrence Martin, producer, rapper, musician, singer. And then it had Ninth Wonder in it. So it was, that album was super fun to, as far as Robert Glasper albums, I was all over the place. I had an absolute fun time checking out all of his stuff. I don't know how I came about this. Marquise Hill was a find that I had made during this week. Trumpeter, composer from the south side of Chicago, 2014 Monk Award, which is now the Herbie Hancock Institute, and his album Rituals and Routines. So I was kind of all over the world with Robert Glasper. I had so much stinking fun with his music.
Well, and that's the rabbit hole that you went down with, with that trumpet player. And those are the kind of rabbit holes that you and I encounter each week when we find artists that have played with him. And that's the fun part too. That's the great part of this journey is unlocking some rabbit holes and finding other artists that are similar or maybe completely different, but they collab with, and it makes it so much fun to listen to.
Oh yeah.
He also did I'm not sure if it was a documentary on PBS, and I can't remember. You'll have to forgive me. I can't remember if a year ago when we initially were listening to him. I have the link for the PBS Black Radio. It was either an interview or some kind of a documentary. I have to say I'm sorry that I'm too cheap and to sign up for PBS just to watch that video. So, but that was the one thing that I kind of regret this week is not watching that the PBS special. Did you watch that?
I don't think that I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll put the link in the
how's this? I don't have the notes that I did. Chances are it's included in my subscription of things, so I may have watched it, and that may be where somebody like Marquise Hill pops in. But we have been getting into some documentaries as well, understanding that there's more than just the music behind the artists. If there's any footage of any jazz musician out there, it's super fun to watch. And I think you're laughing because we both know about Clark Terry now. Daddle doodle, doddle, dodle doodle. Teaching those kids in that master class. I almost said that. I'll continue to work it on the weeks to come. But watching watching the past and the present musicians and any of those documentaries sure is super wonderful. And we're spoiled with this digital age because of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's easy to jump on YouTube and look for, Glasper interview or something and watch an actual interview or a documentary or pretty much anything. And I don't know. He's cool. I think Glasper's got some great ideas and his music shows. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Interesting beats, interesting ideas. The direction reminds me of what we talked about last week with M-Bass. Always trying to bring experiences into the expression of music, which is what the jazz greats did. Coltrane, even on the album Ascension, as more of a free jazz, they were bringing the moment, the present, into the music. What did they feel? What were they fighting for? What were they fighting against? Were they angry, happy, joyous? Were they celebratory? And that flavor came out in the way in which we hear albums today. So Robert continues to do that. And in his worldview, if you will, this hip hop blend with jazz and gospel and R&B. And you look at it and think, you know what? This is all about blending worlds together right now. And this is where we're at. Bring my expression, find my freedom of expression in the music that I produce. There's an element that makes me think I'd love to sit down and just be a wallflower in a conversation in a room with him and others, just to glean some information about what they're thinking. It's just life to them. They make it happen.
I'm going to throw up the slideshow. You continue to talk because you got some great points. Let me just throw up the slideshow while you talk, and I'll mute myself. Keep going.
Absolutely.
You're spot on. And I was just looking at the Blue Note label that he recorded with, and the Blue Note was similar to M-Bass, right? They were willing to experiment. They were willing to kind of go off from the beaten path with their artists, right?
They really did.
Yeah,
they really did. Blue Note, I wish I had my notes in front of me on what Blue Note brings to the table, but throughout all of their years, Blue Note Records always looked for that ambitious movement of music. And they brought that challenge to the table by wanting to produce some of the leading characters of the time. They reached a spot where they actually closed the label down after 80 some years, and then reopened it in the late 80s. So they were always moving and shaking. And I think we mentioned that a couple of weeks ago. If you see a Blue Note label, you can almost expect some phenomenal music.
Yeah.
Music is a form of expression, and how we express our current life situation, how we express the circumstances that we're in, how we see the world. We can see it as Louis Armstrong did with What a Wonderful World. We can see it through the music of the current gangster rap stuff that exists. Bringing these different worlds together is got to be tough. It's inspirational, but the fact is that music can be very inspirational, and I think that's what we're all looking for. So I think right now a little sound clip of one of the as that slideshow runs.
Oh, I like that idea. Can I pick?
Yeah.
All right. The one that I really liked was Yes, I'm Country. I mean, it's still traditional jazz, but there's a little country flavor in there. I got a little bit. You'd have to, bite down on it to find it. But Yes, I'm Country. That's song number 3 on the album.
Is there another clip that you want to drop in?
No, you pick one.
I want to do Butterfly.
Oh yeah.
Because it is a Herbie Hancock tune.
Yeah.
And now Butterfly from the man himself, Herbie Hancock. Butterfly was written by Herbie Hancock and Benny Maupin, and the clip you're about to hear is from Herbie Hancock's 1974 album, Thrust.
All right, let's talk about Robert for a minute. Born in 1978, and I read this morning that his biggest influence was his mother, Kim. She was a jazz singer. The other kind of influence, he started playing piano in church when he was like 8 years old, and it just took me back to my own childhood, piano lessons and growing up in the church. Mom asked me to play the piano one Sunday night for church, and I was petrified. I was completely horrified. I muddled my way through. She said, if you get lost, just start playing chords. No one's going to hear you anyways. And I thought, well, if no one's going to hear me, then why do we need a piano player? But, growing up playing piano in the church, that was Robert. First solo album, you talked about that album just a few minutes ago, Mood from 2004. It's not necessarily one of my favorites. The next album in 2005 is the one we talked about, and then Double Booked, of course, the album that we're talking about. Genre that's listed in Discogs is jazz, hip hop, R&B, neo soul, and fusion jazz. So those genres kind of fit him. I hate to pigeonhole an artist into a specific genre or multiple genres, but man, those really fit him well. The fusion jazz, I'm having a little hard time finding the fusion part in it. When I think fusion, I think more of Metheny and Spyro Gyra. But yeah, the R&B, the hip hop, the neo soul, oh for sure. We already talked about his Grammy career, 5-time Grammy winner with 11 nominations. Just, I mean, that's amazing to me. That he's worked so hard and won those Grammys. It's just amazing. He does have his own website, robertglasper.com. I don't know if you've been paying attention to what's behind me, but I do have his website pulled up, and I was looking at that earlier with his tour dates on it and everything. Rabbit Hole that we went down, Canvas from 2005. Of course, F.Yo Feelings, we still laugh about today, a year later. Black Radio from 2012. And the documentary on PBS. And again, I regret to say that I didn't watch that this week, but it's hard to drop $30 on PBS just to watch one documentary. And I'm sure there was other stuff on there that I could find, but that's my regret. Anyway, the quotes. You heard the quote at the beginning of the episode. Anyone who loves jazz has a little bit of snob in them, which we laugh about, and Drew and I text each other pretty much 4 or 5 times a week. We're not snobs. We just choose not to listen to anything else right now. Right?
That's it.
And then the other quote that I found really interesting is everyone's not going to like jazz. Let's just be honest about it. Everyone doesn't like everything. There's a disconnect in generations, and some people just aren't going to feel that music. Now, I like that word feel in there because I like the way that I feel when I listen to Glasper's music. It does. It makes me feel good. It's good music to listen to. And I really, I just dig it. I just dig it. Last slide of the slideshow. Today in jazz history, I found that today saxophonist Harry Carney was born in 1910 in Boston, Massachusetts. Doesn't mean much. That was I couldn't correlate that with anything else. I don't know who Harry Carney is. Maybe I'll rabbit hole on him this coming week and find out who he was. Born in 1910, you can only imagine he's going to play some kind of ragtime jazz, some early jazz in 19. Well,
he ain't no Coleman Hawkins.
So yeah, that's a slideshow. So thanks for looking at that. Thanks for letting me present that, and that's always fun for me to make. It always kind of keeps my mind on the artist that week, and really helps me focus on what I'm going to listen to, and yeah, so it's fun. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
Are you ready to rate Double Booked?
Yes, I can be. Do I want to be? Probably not.
Okay.
This week it was so much fun, and I did appreciate all of the magical sounds that come from the electric keys. And to me, it just made it so exciting. The quote that you wrapped up with there about feeling the music, jazz is not for everybody. I do agree that the feel is the important part of it. As you guys go about feeling this music this week, my hopes would be that last week you have taken the advice and listened to the album. I know that many of you will use this week's episode as an opportunity to see who you should be listening to. So my encouragement is don't take our rating and expect something for yourself out of our number. If you are waiting to hear what we're talking about today to go listen to the album this week, disregard these ratings because these are personal to us. This is part of our current journey. But this week we are going to rate and put up on screen here in just a moment our current rating for this album. I'm going to note it. This is number 89, Robert Glasper. The album was double booked, and it was in 2009 on Blue Note Records. Our rating for the week. I am ready to rate it, Matt, if you are.
All right. Well, let me go first, and I'll just explain my rating a little bit. I don't have to defend it because it's my opinion. But here we go. I gave Double Booked an 8 out of 10, and it made me feel good listening to it. I did like the traditional first 6 songs on the album more than I liked the experimental last 6 songs. I think if there would have been a little more transition besides a hard cut, I might have gone to an 8.5 or 9. But I just felt like it was kind of discombobulated, and I don't mean that rudely. I just mean if there would have been an easier transition into the experimental stuff, I would have enjoyed it a little bit more. So 8's my rating.
Mine, I didn't have an issue with that transition from the two, but I agree with you. If a song in the middle started to blend the two, it would have been a little easier to move into that hard cut. But it wasn't that big of a change listening back to that album even this morning. Is that you go from a trio, which was so phenomenal. I mean, let's face it, a bass, a piano, and a drum set, come on. We didn't appreciate that at the time. But then to move into the quartet sound and to the true electronic music, I actually personally appreciated that. I did love and appreciate that hip hop sound that he's got. I don't really recall it much in this album, but when you listen to things like Butterfly, you know where it came from, and you knew that in the 70s when Herbie Hancock did it, what was the technology under his fingertips in 1970 for an electric piano? And what does Robert Glasper have today at his fingertips? And how big of a difference is it? I can see on the full screen your computer back there. Imagine if Herbie would have had full access to what is in that laptop when he recorded Butterfly. So I really got excited. I gave this album an 8.5, and our opinions can be wrong. But in the immortal words of Robert Glasper's album, F your feelings. We had to. But I think it's been an exciting week listening to Robert Glasper. Double Booked was a really fun album, and a year later going back to hear it and put it in my ears, I might have rated it different.
I was going to ask you.
Personally, this morning, I could have probably gone another half notch to a 9. Just understanding the history of the album, the music, the players that were on it. What about you? Would you rate it differently?
Knowing what I know now, because we are unconnoisseurs, we're still on our journey. And of course, we're not trying to lie to anyone. Drew and I are farther ahead. Knowing what I know now, yes, I would have rated it different. I would have gone a half. I would have gone a half, even maybe a whole point more.
Sweet.
There's going to be weeks coming up that we don't rate the artist very well, but I think Robert is one that he deserves a good rating, not because he deserves it, but because that's how he made me feel when I listened to his music. So I think it's fair. No, I just think it's fair. A year ago when we rated it, when we wrote our numbers down, it was fair for what we knew. And, if you're new on your jazz journey and you're checking out Robert Glasper, man, I wouldn't hesitate to recommend Robert Double Booked to a brand new jazz listener.
Nope. Not at all.
No, not at all. And
that's where I want to ask this. Yeah, that would have been a year ago.
Yeah.
Feeling. How did it make you feel? Could you sum it up in a couple of words?
Excited. I actually had the similar feeling in week 93 when we did Sir Brad. There's a lot.
Brad Mehldau. Just for y'all
Brad,
jumping in on that.
Episode 93. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. But I found a lot of similarities. I just not that they're similar artists, but man, you could totally tell the style of music and the commitment to the music as Brad and Robert go together. So it made me feel really excited, really good. I got excited.
Light and fluffy, like a floating cloud. There was something pretty exciting about the way in which it moved through. It wasn't warm and friendly like listening to Porter, but there was something energizing, exciting, like a storm clouds rolling in. They're charged. They're excited. The particles are bouncing, but there's no rain. There's no dark sky. It's just pure energy.
Yeah.
That's how I felt about it.
Yeah.
I haven't asked that question before, but I thought, for some that will listen to this week's conversation with us, they're now going to go listen to Robert Glasper. So My question would be how does it make you feel? Is there a feeling that you get from it?
Yeah, we'd love to hear your comments. If you listen to Robert Double Booked, let us know. I mean, maybe we're way off and you guys didn't like him at all. Please feel free to comment on the video. That would mean more to us than anything at all.
Absolutely.
I don't think that Mr. Glasper is obscure. I think he's still prevalent. Prevalent. I think he's still prevalent and relevant. Oh, I just created a new word.
That's a new word.
Prevalent. But yeah, let us know. Let us know how you feel. Last week we did 6 Degrees of Separation to Miles Davis. Can you find a degree? I know that he did the soundtrack for the movie Miles. Maybe that's something we'll have to look into for next week because
I don't think I did.
Yeah, I didn't either. So we'll get back to the 6 degrees of miles for Glasper on next episode. I'll tell you a 6 degree. I'll find one.
I'll find, yeah, right.
uh,
This, yeah, that's a
oh
good
no,
question
I
this
got it.
week.
I got it right here. Herbie Hancock. Did Herbie ever play with Miles?
Do what?
Did Herbie ever play
Wait a
with
minute, I
Miles?
gotta stop the video. What are you talking about? Only
So
the second great
second grade quartet.
quintet in the
All right.
world.
All right.
Yes.
So
And I would have to say
Robert,
that was Herbie. Are you ready? Herbie and Wayne Shorter and Tony Williams. Yes. They
okay.
played together.
So there you go. Herbie is the third degree of separation.
I was about to
Miles, Herbie, and then Robert Glasper, because
Yep.
there we go. 6 degrees done.
I was about to reach through there. Did Herbie ever play with Miles?
We're on connoisseurs, man.
I knew that only because of Wayne Shorter.
I know.
Man, I love to listen. Tony Williams and Ron Carter. I got to drop that name out there. That was, I still think that was probably the best quartet ever. Not the second great Miles, but the best ever.
Yeah. All right. So this is week 89. Robert Glasper. You want to tell him who's coming up next week?
Oh, I sure do.
All right. You ready?
For your listening pleasure this week coming, we will have number 88. This is the Jazz Warriors. The album is Out of Many, One People. Antilles is the record label, and it came out in 1987. This album is going to be a little hard to find. I already know that coming in. It's on the screen. You can take a look at it now. I will bring it back up a little bit later. If you go into your typical searches for this week's album, whether it's YouTube, Google, Apple Music, you're going to have a hard time finding this particular album. What you will find is something from 2013, and it does blend the Afropean music of today, but that's not this album. The album cover is on the screen right now. Looking for that from 1987. Matt, where did you find the music?
Well, I'm just looking at my notes. We had to have found it on YouTube back then. Not YouTube Music, on YouTube, because I have notes for each and every one of the songs on the album. So, and then you talked about Out of Many, One People. No, you talked.
And
you talked about the new album.
That was the Afropean, and that was actually 2020. I think is what my note shows here on the newest album.
Right. So yeah, we must have found it on YouTube. The Jazz Warriors, Out of Many, One People. This this is going to be kind of an obscure album to listen to. It's going to stretch your ears for jazz for sure, because there's a lot of the African rhythms and the African beats, which is cool. So yeah, all the notes that I made, I must have really been coming into our own. And that's the thing about this journey, is you're going to see us start getting a little more intellectual with the musicians and talking about. We're never going to talk about the A sus7 chord and why they put it over the D minor's fifth major 9. If that's what you're here for, check out Rick Beato. But I think as we grow as listeners and to learn to appreciate jazz, out of many, one people is really gonna stretch you, and it's gonna make you appreciate kind of the journey. So yes, it's obscure. Yes, it's not going to be something you're going to go back to very often. But man, please give it a listen to. Go on.
You didn't see me break my neck looking up at you. I've gone back to this album a lot. I'm sorry.
Oh, have you?
I have. And partly because what everybody will experience, the music is super fun. It is on YouTube. I just found that, and I think it's listed as side A for one long track, and then side B. I don't think that you're going to find it listed as Jazz Warriors. I'll find the link. We'll drop it in when this is finally done. But do your due diligence and look through the magazine at the names of the artists that you're going to find here. The Jazz Warriors, to me, become really important when you look at where they came from. Greg Orsby is one of the names on there, and Matt's favorite, Courtney Pine, is on there.
Yep.
And in the middle of all of this, I want y'all to do your due diligence and look into tomorrow's Warriors as well as the Jazz Warriors. Tomorrow's Warriors on Google. Check them out and see what you're in for. But this is why I keep going back to this album. It was instrumental for a lot of things transitioning into and out of. Super exciting album. Number 88, I'm going to pop it up on screen here. Number 88, Jazz Warriors. Out of many, one people.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our conversation today. And thank you so much for joining us on our channel. Thank you for staying to the end. If you have questions or concerns, or you want to make a comment, you can email us at theunconnoisseur@gmail.com. You can always leave a comment on the video. We love looking at the comments. Thank you so much for commenting. Maybe we were way off base this week with Robert Glasper. Let us know. Let us know what you think. So leave a comment. Visit us at theunconnoisseur.com website. I made a lot of updates this week on the website. Put in some jazz quotes, put in some new albums of the day to listen to kind of remind myself what to listen to that day. You can find me on TikTok at The Unconnoisseur, and Drew's doing the shorts for us. And man, you are knocking it out of the park, dude. The way that you're doing, the channel, thank you so much for all your hard work. I can't thank you enough.
You're welcome. This has been a lot of fun so far, and it will continue to be.
Absolutely.
It absolutely will.
Yep.
Thank y'all again for staying till the end. Don't forget, number 88, Jazz Warriors. Out of many people, one. I just said that wrong.
Out of many, one
people.
Yeah.
Cheers, y'all.
Cheers. Have a great week.
This just in, as we finished up recording this episode of Robert Glasper, we were reminded that by the time this drops, we will have a very special interview. That special interview is going to help us shape our minds. Is there anything you want to put in there, Matt, about what we're doing?
Well, the person that we're interviewing is a very good listener, and I think that's one thing that's going to help us on our journey on how we listen to not only music, not only how to hear the artist, but how to hear each other. So stay tuned. It's going to be an exciting episode. It's probably going to be our most watched episode just based on the person that we're interviewing.
Well, each week he'll call and say, hey, I've shared the channel with so-and-so and such, and he's got a QR code now, so people just scan it on his phone and he can talk about us. It is about listening, and that's going to be the special episode. It'll be all about listening. I won't be surprised if he asks to start with a moment of silence just to listen. But that'll be coming out. Keep an eye on that. That'll be a Saturday afternoon drop. We'll keep you posted along the way with some shorts, and we'll keep it up on TikTok when that comes out.
Yeah, we know you're going to like the video. We know you're going to like the interview, and stay tuned because it's gonna get exciting. Thanks.
Yes, it will. All right. Now we're out. Thanks.
Okay.